Thank you first off to everyone on our panel today. I'm going to have them all introduce themselves, but as you guys all probably know, they're kind of the kings and queens, shall we say, of the TIC market here in San Francisco. So I got lucky enough to kind of get to run the show along with Ashley on this from YPN, and it's a part 2 to our hopefully 3-part series. Just trying to get different speakers in on, all surrounding the topic of TICs. And now that the rates are pretty favorable, it seems like a pretty good timing to have this panel. So they're gonna touch on a few things, but first I'm gonna have them all introduce themselves. And so I'll let one of you begin.
Hi there, I'm Anna Coles. I'm with Polaris Realty, which is part of SIDE. I'm going into my 5th year of real estate. I've represented buyers and sellers in both TIC sides of buyers and sellers, and bringing folks together with forming new TICs. I also live in a 10-unit TIC building here in the city, and I manage it.
And I did my first TIC deal with her on the other side.
Yay.
I'm Michael Bellings with the Bellings Brothers Real Estate team at Compass. Started our career at Vanguard, but at Compass the last couple of years. We've been in real estate, I think 9 years, 9-ish. I don't know how many TICs we've sold, but we've helped buyers, sellers, developers, newly formed TICs. Yeah, and I think it's some of the first deals we ever did. So we kind of, trial by fire our first year and did some TIC sales and got our feet wet with that. Happy to be here.
Aaron Bellings, the other half of Bellings Brothers real estate team with Compass here in San Francisco. Think I've sold a TIC with almost everybody on this panel, so that's exciting. Excited to talk about them. Been in the business for almost 10 years now, and excited to be here. Oh, I got a fun real estate joke too. Why didn't the hipster real estate agent show the Oceanside mansion? Because it was too current.
Huh.
Oh, what that one, Simmer?
Well done.
Wanted a joke, you got a joke.
That was good. No, I'm impressed. We asked for jokes. We got jokes.
I'm John Farnham. I currently work for Compass, but I got my start selling TICs with Tim Brown there. And I've been in real estate now for 20 years in the city. I think I've sold, 700 or 800 TICs over the last 20 years. Learned everything I knew from Tim Brown.
Nice. Yeah, Brown.
Okay, my name's Anthony Koutsos. Do I just talk or yeah? And I'm with Keller Williams. Moved over there. I was with Tim Brown, and we got bought by Keller Williams. And I started out selling TICs in 2002. My first deal was a really complicated 4-unit TIC. Took about 6 months to close on a group loan. And so that's how I started. So to me, they weren't difficult because it was the only thing I was doing. So a lot of agents didn't want to do them back then. And I was like, I'll do this to get that much money, sure, So now I've kind of specialized in them for the last 20 years. And I've sold hundreds of them, buyer side and seller side.
I think a lot of agents still don't want to sell them, so I think
right.
You're still there. Okay, and then I think last but not least, Mr. Tim Brown.
My name is Tim Brown, and I think I sold my first TIC in 1980. It was a 2-unit building, probably before a lot of you were born, and I've sold over 1,000 TICs, and our company, probably including when John was working with me and Anthony, probably the company sold over probably 2,000 to 3,000 TICs. And we originated the first fractional TIC in 2005, and the first construction loan for TICs in 2005.
And just so everybody knows, Tim was instrumental in getting Bank of Marin to start their first fractional loan program, and it was a way for the developer clients to buy buildings with a takeout strategy for buyers, avoiding a group loan. So that was, I think you said 2005 or 2006, but I remember that when we first sold the building on, I think it was it Pine? No, I can't remember, but it was for Craig Lipton. But when we first sold that building, it made the news. It made this SF Chronicle as being a new, form of financing, and people were very, very hesitant about it then. Because it was, a 5-year fixed. They thought it was very risky, and here we are 16 years later, and it's become the gold standard for that type of financing.
I think Nando's on with an Aaron Bellings name.
Uh-oh.
You might have sent him the wrong link, Aaron.
Yeah.
When I used to do open houses back in, from 2002 through 2005, I'd be standing there because TICs were so inexpensive compared to condos then. You'd have a crowd of people standing in the lobby of a building asking you all these questions. You're basically giving a little seminar at every open house. And I'd be talking about how you're going to share a loan, multi-million-dollar loan with 5 strangers. And, people would say, can't we get our own loan? And I say, that'll never happen. And then within about a year or two of me saying that, we had fractional TIC loans, and everything completely changed at that point. They became almost exactly like condos.
By getting the fractional loans, it opened up the TIC market from just doing 2-unit buildings or 3-unit buildings or sometimes 4-unit buildings to doing, so a lot of the buildings were 10 and 20-unit buildings. Usually around 12 was probably what we usually did for larger buildings, but that just opened up the whole market. And then having more fractional lenders come into the market after that basically reinstated the fact that TICs were here to stay. We were lucky. Bank of Marin and I originated the first TICs, and then very quickly thereafter, Sterling came in, Circle Bank came in, and we were on our way. And then there were millions of dollars worth of loans given, and then today I think there's 7 or 8 lenders, and we actually have 30-year fixed money, which we just started. Maybe Anthony and John may know 2 years ago, a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
so for the first time in the 16 years that we've been doing fractional loans, we have actually 30-year fixed money.
And I think the 30-year fixed money is actually cheaper than the 30-year fixed condo money right now, which is like what an inflection point right now is as far as financing. It's just blows my mind.
And Anthony actually collected, thank you, Anthony. He reached out to all of our TIC lenders yesterday and got the most current rates. So if Anthony doesn't mind, we can share it with everyone.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'll let you speak.
But there's sort of a cloud. Every time I get that negative thing about TICs, I feel like there's just a cloud hanging over.
The negative thing. Maybe you should you and John should explain how that usually goes.
All right, well, I'll be the buyer. John's going to be the listing agent at the open house. So I walk in and I say to John, I've heard that these things are kind of risky, and that I'm exposed to the loans that other people have. Here we are 16 years into it. And then how would you respond to me? I'm the buyer and John's the agent.
Well, so first of all, I think one thing that's key for marketing TICs is we don't generally put TIC all over our marketing collateral, just because we want to get people into the property to fall in love. So Anthony, you came into my property today not knowing it was a TIC property.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, this is a TIC. I didn't. Whoa. Wait a minute. So, and they start walking out, and then you have to take the hook and pull them back in.
So generally what I do when somebody doesn't know it's a TIC, and then we're not looking for TICs, and they start to walk out the door, then I think it's really helpful to ask open-ended questions to the buyer to ask them, what do they know about TICs? Because then you can sort of unearth, their maybe they have misconceptions. Maybe they think, it's still a group loan situation, that they have risk for co-owning the property. What if somebody defaults on, their portion of the loan? So I would usually go into an explanation that, for the last 15 years, we've had fractional loan program. And so it basically, you're not on the hook for anybody else's mortgage. If somebody else were to default, and then I usually say that in my experience, I've never even seen a default on a fractional loan personally, because the credit requirements are so high from these lenders that, I've just actually never seen it happen. But even if they were to default on the loan, then your equity would not be at risk, because they can't come after you as part of, the collective group. Then I sort of go into a little bit of a deeper explanation of how it works. I would probably start by saying, talking about the current rates of fractional loans and how those have changed over the years, and how there's a 30-year fixed product right now, which, brings the risk down to nothing. I think, Anthony, you made a great point in one of your emails recently that these loans are assumable, which is not the case with like your standard 30-year fixed condo loan. And if rates jump in the next couple of years, which I think everybody feels like they might, then that's a really good product to have in a market where there's going to be maybe higher interest rates. I usually go a little bit further and explain how the taxes work with TICs, because that's one big difference. And so, and I think by doing this and being transparent about it, then it's not like you're trying to, be shady and not give them all of the information. So I say that, the city still taxes the property as one parcel. So the taxes are paid on a monthly basis into a reserve account. So there's always a rolling reserve of taxes. That's really the one liability that they share with the rest of the owners that's different than a condo, besides the common area expenses. But the way the agreement is written, it allows for monthly collections of taxes. And I've also never seen anybody walk away from a TIC from a tax bill or anything like that. So the default rate is basically zero. The interest rate now is competitive to condos, and generally when you're looking at TICs, they're priced lower than condos. So you're getting a better value for the space that you're buying overall. And, and then I think sometimes what I do is give examples of buildings that, I've sold 15 years ago and show resales, more recently, and show the appreciation, and that TICs appreciate or depreciate or stagnate with the market as a whole.
I like that. Thank you. That was all great information. And that last point I think is important. And I think if we can hear from each of you on the panel, just kind of so say that I am a new agent, and I was not that long ago. I came from title and escrow. Therefore I know and am comfortable with TICs, but most people don't have that. They're coming from a totally different industry, and a TIC seems like the most crazy thing to understand. So if you were to explain it in the most layman's term, give me one or two points that just kind of people can jot down that they can take away and use when they're talking to buyers or sellers.
What I like to do at open houses, when I get the question, what is the difference between a TIC and a condo? I found myself going on and on and on and on so much that I finally said, I got to get this down to a really concise elevator speech. So I got it down to 4 things. You just go, there are 4 differences: title, tax, the loans, and rent control. That's the difference between a TIC and a condo. Title, we know what it is, your tenancy in common. Loans, we know what they are, they're fractional. And property tax, John just explained, you pay it as a group. And I also say, if I can, I try to set up pro bookkeeping so everybody's paying their tax every month. That kind of makes people feel a little better. And I also say, you know, and they go, whoa, well, if somebody defaults on their taxes, then we have to pay it. That's what the buyer says. We have to pay it. I go, yeah, you do. But I said, if somebody's defaulting on their taxes, they're probably really close to defaulting on their mortgage anyway. And then the bank will take it back and they'll pay the taxes. So you're not on the hook for years and years paying some of these taxes, you know. And then the 4th thing is rent control. So, and then I just hit them right over the head and say, it's the most strict and severe form of rent and eviction control as it applies to a multi-unit apartment building. Just don't sugarcoat it. Just say it's severe and it's strict. And they usually, I'm not going to rent it anyway. I'm buying it, you know, I'm buying this to live in it. So you just hit them with those 4 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they go, oh, okay, that's pretty simple. It's just 4 things.
I just sold a building that was not rent control, the TIC, and it was Laura's it was her building on Hyde Street, and I'm told you guys would know better than I, but I think that's one of the only ones.
Oh yeah, and that one used to be rent
That's the
control.
only
What
one.
year is it, I wonder?
So I think it's important to note that the biggest issue that I run into with TICs is buyer and agent education. So if the buyers aren't going to get educated if the agents don't know, the agents choose to ignore it rather than educate themselves about it. And that's why I think this sort of—
But look how many people are here.
Exactly. Well, that's why people are here, but that's also why there's this negative stigma around TICs comes from the old adage of there being group loans still. So thinking that you have to buy into a building with a bunch of strangers and get in bed with them financially. That's not the case because you have fractional financing. And it's really just, I think, agent education, getting people comfortable with it. They're very similar. They operate very similarly to condos with the exception of the couple of points that John and Anthony talked about. When you're talking to buyers, though, they don't care about that. The taxes are the same. Whether you buy a TIC or a condo, doesn't matter. You can have a condo and you can put away 1/12 of it every month and it'll operate the same as the TIC does. So I don't even talk about that stuff because that's all relative. You get more for your money. That's the bottom line. You sit in front of your buyer and you go, you want a 3rd bedroom? Let's look at TICs. You want a 2nd bathroom? Let's look at TICs. You want a top floor? Let's look at TICs. You want something brand new? There's a ton of developers that are doing it. So questions come in. HOAs operate exactly the same way, with the exception of the property tax piece. But again, that's like not even— you guys are better than me because you're talking about all this property taxes and all that at open houses. I'm like, guys, can you believe you can get this for 1.5 in this location? Why is that? Because it's a TIC. Well, what does that mean? It operates very similarly to a condo. Title is just held differently. And I leave it at that. And they go, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. And then I send them information. You know, Gelman has a really great TIC FAQs that I send people, and they can educate themselves on like the little nuances. But the bottom line is you get more for your money. It operates very similarly to how a condo is going to operate. And that's really where you got to start.
And Aaron and I's philosophy going a step further is that as San Francisco becomes more and more unaffordable, like condominiums and single family homes, we think TICs are an even better opportunity because it's not going to be that way forever. And we've already seen the progress over the last 20 years based on Tim getting fractional loans from certain banks. But as the city becomes more and more affordable for all those other product types, TICs become a really good opportunity and a really good way to build wealth in San Francisco through real estate while enjoying more space for your money at the same time.
Plus, if you condo convert, you get a big bump in equity and value right there too. Like if you have a condo, you got to change something on the inside. If you have a TIC, you can change the way title's held, believe it or not, by condo converting, and you can make money that way, but not even doing anything to the inside.
Yeah, to give some, go for it.
I think the other important thing that Aaron missed is not only do you get more for your money, but you're able to purchase in locations that you would not be able to buy into. And that pretty much solidified the market when we started it, is people wanted to live in the marina, but they couldn't afford to buy a home or a condo. So they would be able to buy into a TIC or buy a building with friends.
Great point.
That really pushed the market.
With that, for my before my husband and I bought our TIC, I was doing some data. This was before I got into real estate. And I was looking at, okay, if we're going to have sales of TICs, where are they in the city? And they're largely District 5, District 8. So to your point, those are very desirable areas where we're going to have, I think it's something like 50% of the sales in the last couple of years are from those areas. But one thing that I think helps as our community to give some perspective is, based on the numbers, for every 11 condos that sell in the city, 1 TIC is selling. So it's no wonder that we have, education opportunities like this happening, because it is a fraction of what's being sold across the city. And I'm sourcing from MLS for the last couple of years, like June 2020 to June 2022. And of those that sell, it's also about the same index in terms of the pricing. So we talked about how TICs come in a little bit lower. In terms of that price difference, it's about 11% lower. Now I'm looking at all TICs, no matter where they are, all condos, no matter where they are in the city, and just doing a straight median look at that sales price. So the numbers are real, and it's pretty much been that pattern for the past several years in terms of the number of TICs sold versus condos, and then the median price that we see for those. And a last point, why do TICs exist? That's the biggest question mark some of us may even have all the time, right? They exist, and we're not lawyers, I'm not an attorney, so definitely reach out to any of our TIC attorneys in the community. But what I've been expressed and told is that TICs exist because they create ownership interests without violating subdivision laws. In the city and the county of San Francisco, we have to maintain a delicate balance of how many people own, how many people rent, how many people have low affordable housing. In order to be able to maintain that balance, enter something like a TIC interest, where the TIC agreement is not recorded with the city, but a memorandum is recorded with the city, and a grant deed is recorded with the city. And it talks about how we have this TIC agreement in place to help us all live harmoniously together. So just wanted to touch on that.
Rent control really created it in 1979. Up until 1979, rent control came in, all the landlords ran down to the Department of Public Works and started converting 100-unit buildings, 200-unit buildings. And then they said, okay, well, we're not going to let you do that anymore. It was that when they stopped allowing condo conversion. And so a couple of sneaky lawyers and real estate agents rubbed their hands together and said, well, you can tell me that I can't take this 10-unit building and convert it to 10 condominiums, but you can't stop me from selling it to 10 different people and having a private agreement, which dictates who uses which unit. And then in 2005, we got fractional loans, which made them a lot more viable.
Well, I think the fractional loans piece changed the game. I mean, that's what made it a financially, not only financially viable, but financially affordable. And it's so you don't, that's the biggest thing for me is there's no real major risk for getting into a TIC that doesn't exist with condominiums. There are some, but there are also risks involved with buying real estate with other people in a building, no matter where you're buying or what you're buying. I just think that TICs are just such a great opportunity that just give you the ability to just afford more, and to Tim's point, afford locations you couldn't before.
That's a good point that you brought it up earlier. When the buyers are standing in front of you, they say, well, I don't want to get involved in the TIC because there are other people and blah, 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 blah. But that is no different than a condo. You have to deal with other people in a condo, just like a TIC.
Yeah, and
in
layman terms for people too, a TIC agreement is very similar to CC&Rs, just so everyone knows. So I have a lot of people that say, oh, this TIC agreement is so stringent. And I talk about, have you read CC&Rs of the condominium building as well? So just so everyone knows.
Just to expand on Aaron's point about fractional loans changing the game for TICs, I think last year, the fact that there's 30-year fixed fractional loans, it changed it again.
Big time. And the rates are great. The rates are better than single family condo right now. That's never been I've been doing this for 10 years. That's never been the case. Now there's even more reasons to go after TICs. As if you needed one before, now you've got another one.
Okay. So we have a lot of questions coming in. So I'm going to go through them one by one, and then maybe one of you guys can jump in on each one, but let's try and go kind of quickly because there's a lot. So can you do fractional loan in the mixed use building, i.e. 3-unit building, including 1 commercial storefront?
Yes.
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 Quick answer.
Talk,
Yeah.
talk to one of the TIC lenders. They'll get you squared away on that, but yes.
Okay,
Right now, Bank of San Francisco is the only lender that will do a commercial TIC loan though, in that building. You could
You're saying
use
Tim
another-
will not do, right? Will
Pardon me?
not do.
Pardon me?
Bank of San Francisco will not do the commercial, correct?
They will do it.
They will do.
They're the
Ah,
only one that will do it. Their rates are higher and their LTV is higher, but they're the only lender that will do it. But other lenders will do the TICs on the residential portion of the commercial building.
Got it.
awesome, thank you. And then, so this one is for Anthony. So can you explain point 4 a little more, RE rent control?
Well, a condominium, because of the Costa-Hawkins in 1996, disallows rent control on single-family dwellings. So condominiums are considered single-family dwellings, even though it's an apartment in a 100-unit building, because you have title to the one apartment. In 1979, San Francisco put rent control on all multi-unit buildings. So it's, you can't raise the rent more than the allowable amount every year. In a condo, there is no restriction except for maybe the current, well, I guess that current.
Yeah, California passed a law. I think it's like 5% now, something like that.
It probably doesn't apply to houses and condominiums. It's probably just for apartment buildings.
Yeah, and that's really geared towards more investors, the owner occupiers and first time buyers, which I feel like skews a little bit towards TICs. That's less of a concern, just because you're not typically renting it out.
It is a difference though, because let's say you
Definitely.
buy a condo and a couple of years later you lose your job and the market's bad and you need to rent it out or something. You just need to be aware of the fact that you have an apartment in an apartment building under the really strict 1979 ordinance, where a condominium wouldn't be under that.
The biggest talk track I have around rent control with TICs and buyers is that if you're renting it out at current market rent control really doesn't matter that much. Like, because rent doesn't really go up more than about 2% a year. If you can put somebody in like a 2-bed, 2-bath and the market rate's like $6,500 a month, like that's great. Like they're not going to be there forever. Let them stay, at $6,500 a month for this 2-bedroom. That's not going to, like having a condominium, it's not going to go from 6,500 to like 10,000 the next year. It'll go from like 6,500 to like 6,800 maybe. And that same TIC is going to go from 6,500 to like 67. So
To add a layer on that, Anthony's absolutely right. TICs are rent controlled, but to add a layer on that, when you're renting out a TIC versus a condominium, the renters have no idea, nor does it matter to them. A 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the marina as a condominium is the same as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath TIC in the marina. It will yield the same rental prices. So the rent control will affect it, but keep in mind, you could actually have a lower acquisition price when you buy a TIC and rent it out to the same rental rate you could rent out a condominium. So something to keep in mind too.
Or a 2-bedroom in an apartment building, in a 30-unit apartment building.
Absolutely.
The rents are equal.
Yeah. So I only talk about that when it's occupied, when you're buying it, because if you're buying an occupied single family, the rules are going to be much different if you're buying an occupied TIC. So I really don't even focus too much on the rent control piece. If it's going to be delivered vacant, it's not as applicable, I would say.
I think the other thing is for newer agents, that TICs have always been the entry level in San Francisco. And by starting the fractional TICs, we allowed the entry level to start at a lower price, which let our first time buyers into the market. So then they could grow equity and then buy into a single family or multi-unit or a condo building. And then just keep moving up. I'm going to say 98% or 99% of TICs sell to owner occupiers. That's the other thing. Your first time buyers are not as sophisticated as others. So as newer agents, you're not as sophisticated as maybe the people on our panel. So you could probably handle them if you learn TICs. And TICs are similar to condos or homes. Once you've done one, it gets easier, and you've done two, it gets like riding a bike. Pretty soon it's autopilot. And you can just do TICs all day long.
Oh yeah, my first TIC offer, I forget the agent, and he tore up my TIC purchase
I remember who it was.
and redlined all of it and said, send it back and redo
Is it
this.
Tim?
It was me.
No.
It was me.
Yeah, I think it was someone else, but we probably had a similar experience.
Yeah, so find your mentor, or find your office manager, or find
Or this
one
panel.
of us,
I
or
was gonna
somebody
say
on your
this
panel.
panel is like,
Yeah.
everyone on this panel, like I early on, I kind of, as a new agent, found myself down a TIC path, with both buyer and listings, and I've reached out to every single one of these guys, for help, and they've all been extremely helpful, and I'm not trying to take more of their time, because I know that they spend a lot of their time in, open houses and such, explaining what a TIC is, but that's why we're recording stuff like this, so that you guys can go back and reference it, and all of us are always happy to help, and if we don't know, at least direct you to the right
And
place.
if you have questions about like how to fill out a TIC addendum, like those are easy questions. Agents that have done it before are always happy to answer.
Yeah,
I
the
was just going to
assumption-
say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
assumption release has come up a lot lately. Like 3 different agents have called me recently on that one. And it's just a simple form. You're putting in the seller's name and the buyer's name and how much they paid. And it just takes the liability of the seller away and places it on the buyer to the, adds the buyer to the TIC agreement. But in a lot of cases, your escrow officer will do it for you. You can do it yourself, or you can get Rosemary or Andy Serkin or somebody, one of the attorneys, to do it for you. It's pretty simple. Don't get freaked out over the assumption and release. One other point I wanted to make, since I have back on, I'm getting a lot of pushback from agents and more buyers about big TI, like, oh, I would never buy into a 12-unit TIC or a bigger TIC. And I think that again is a hangover from 15 years ago, when, like Tim was saying earlier, you really were trying to buy a TIC that could condo convert, because you were sharing a loan with all these strangers. And most TICs, we were aiming for condo conversion. But since we have fractional loans, the bigger buildings are not a big deal. It just doesn't really matter. These things can stay TICs forever. It just doesn't matter.
One thing I'll dovetail on that, because I am in a 10-unit building, is and a little bit what Aaron had brought up as well. So, and also what Brandy had called out in the chat about what is the worst case scenario for a TIC, right? And I will caution, because it's important that we all, rising tide lifts all ships, that we understand what is the reserve study look like for a particular building. And this is true of any condo association, right? 10 units plus whatever. What do the reserves look like? Have they had any defaults on property taxes? And do they employ the default funds that's written into the TIC agreement, which I haven't found as many of our TICs in the city to actually put that into play. So worst case scenario is someone defaults on their property taxes. You figure out how collectively you're going to get your default fund or your reserves to cover that, such that the city of San Francisco is made whole in terms of the property tax bill. And then once you get that in store, then you go through other legal channels to be able to recover those funds. So it's something to be aware of. It is something that is very different from a condo, and we got to call that out, because whatever someone does with their property taxes in a condo is different. But there are so many risk mitigation options in the city, and to what we discussed about the buyer profile of buying in San Francisco is at a whole different level. So the chance of default is fortunately very, very small, but it's something to be aware of.
One quick thing on things that are difficult in TICs. A couple of the banks, Patelco and Merriwest, want older TIC agreements to be updated. They got about 5 lender protection items they want put into the agreement. And if you're selling a 12-unit TI, into a 12 or 10 or really big TIC, and you've got to get those 5 changes, you have to get everybody in that building to agree to that. And that can be a little bit of a problem. I mean, it's just a hassle. It'll get done. I just got it done at 20 Crestline. But it was a bit of a struggle. So if you can avoid that, go to the other vendors.
We had to change lender. I was representing the seller, but we had that with the building, Laura's building, and that was a 2012 TIC agreement, and there was 8 requirements that they were requesting, and 13 owners in the building. And so after the full term of that first loan plus an extension, we then moved it over to NCV and got it closed after 36 additional days. That was amazing that it got closed. And the agent on the other side was amazing throughout. Everyone was really working together, and so were all lenders. Everyone was trying their best, but ultimately they're getting 13 people in a limited amount of time to understand what these changes are. So what I learned from that was that as a listing agent, for me to do the research on who is or are the best lenders for that particular TIC. I think it saves everyone a lot of time because no one even knows who the TIC players are for the most part. And then some of them have restrictions on the size or on the down payment amount. So it just,
Well, like with any building, if there's a lender that's already approved it, condo, TIC or otherwise, it's always better to go with the lender.
Yeah,
that's
that's a condo thing too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to keep that email going, keep it current with all the 7 different lenders and what their rates are and what their little quirky, idiosyncrasies are.
Yeah, so ask the listing agent if you're writing an offer on a multi-unit building, if there are other TIC loans in the building and who has them, because that's going to save you some time and energy and potentially some days on the contingencies if there are any.
Yeah, because typically the buyer and the buyer's agent coming into the deal don't really even know who the TIC lenders are. So you can kind of direct that as a listing agent.
And I see a lot of questions coming in about condo conversions, and we're going to stay away from those for this class. I have a feeling that will be a part of our 3rd class because it is a huge part of it, but we don't want to dive into condo conversions before we understand what a TIC is and get the agent community to want to sell them. I mean, that's not the only benefit to them. So I think that we're going to avoid those questions this time, but I promise there's a part 3. And then someone asked, what's the downside to not recording a TIC agreement with the city?
I've been explained that it could lack potentially gravitas, in terms of being enforceable in the court of law, but for all intent and purposes, it's still a contract among multiple or at least one or two people, and contractual law still applies. So the mere fact of recording it, though, does violate the subdivision laws, which is why we make reference to the memorandum of agreement as well as the grant deed that, yes, this is a TIC, it exists, there's a separate agreement. And think about it as well, it's a private agreement. A TIC agreement is a private agreement among the individuals who own.
I think it's important to note too, and this isn't TIC specific, but in general, like lots of these questions are also like, we're giving you our best understanding of these situations. I always encourage clients, if you have questions on CC&Rs, TIC agreements, like here's a list of attorneys, they're all great, buy an hour of their time, satisfy all of your questions. Can a condo convert? Talk to Sirkin's office, talk to Lisa Paul's office. These aren't questions that as agents, we should really be answering for our clients. This would hopefully be in the disclosure package if the listing agent went ahead and got a letter ahead of time, as it is a selling point. But you really want to push back on your buyers and say, hey, like, this is my understanding of it. Here's some educational resources. I suggest you do your own research as well, because we're the leaders here and we're giving them our best knowledge and we're helping them as best as we can. But to Anthony's point, there's like 4 talking points, but in reality, there's probably 40 talking points, and they should be just send them to the right places to get this kind of education themselves too.
And there's a lot
empower themselves.
I found like Sirkin's office, I know some of them are a little outdated, so you have to be careful. But just the amount of information that's there that answers any question that you could ever be asked, like it's a good place for them to start before they start, contacting an attorney. But I think, we do the basics, but don't do the heavy lifting as an agent. Right. It's not our job. And then Robert asked you, Anthony, if you could please repeat your 4 points you discussed with prospective buyers.
So the first one is title. And on that point of title, people get really hung up on percentage. It doesn't really make a big difference what the percentage is. There's something in Andy Sirkin's TIC agreement called relative value percentage. If the building burns to the ground and you're just going to divide up the insurance proceeds, it's based on what your unit was worth on that day, not what your percentage on title is. So don't get hung up on title percentage. And then the second one is property tax. You pay your taxes monthly. There's one bill for the whole building, but the TIC agreement is designed to mimic exactly how you would pay taxes in a condo. It's based on what you paid for it on the day that you bought it. The third thing are loans, which we know are now fractional. There are 7 lenders and the rates are really good. And now there's a 30-year fix, so they're very competitive now. And then the fourth thing is rent control. Rent control applies as it does to an apartment building, and it's really strict and really severe. It's not, if you buy a condo, you can raise the rent all you want every year. You buy a TIC, you cannot raise the rent as much as you want every year. As long as, I mean, most TICs are built before 1979. If it's built after 79, it's not under rent control.
Anthony, can you talk slower so I can write these down?
Title, tax, loan, and rent.
We'll add some of the main takeaways when we send out his collection of the current rates for TICs to everyone who attended. Okay, great. Thank you for, okay, so I'm trying to go through this. So a lot of these are like kind of legal. What are the possible negatives of buying a TIC? I've heard of issues when transferring title and when there is a death of the owner. I don't know if we want to even touch on that, but
I'm kind of curious what's everyone's like negative, like what holds everybody back from, you know, talking to their clients about TICs or educating their clients about TICs? If there are any participants there, I'm curious to hear about that too.
Aaron's running the panel now.
I think,
that's fine.
Aaron's running the panel now.
Aaron, I think a lot of people don't want to, a lot of agents are new and they don't want to seem dumb, honestly.
Yeah.
And things like this help the newer agents get educated and go into Cirkin's website and studying the documents, looking at the TIC addendum. We spent a lot of energy creating that addendum to make it easier for a newer agent to do these transactions.
Yep. And I remember when I first got into real estate, the disclosure package was like the scariest thing. And we actually sit down and read it. It's like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, I get it. This all makes sense. Same thing with TIC agreements, same thing with TIC addendum. So definitely educating yourself on it. I like that.
Yeah. And why wouldn't you want to educate yourself on it? Because it's basically like selling a product for only women versus men. I mean, you're cutting off a quarter, 33% of your potential buyer and seller pool here. So kudos to you all for coming and getting educated on it, but don't be scared of them because you're cutting off a ton of your business if you're not kind of looking at the TIC options. And go on Tuesday tour, go to Anthony's listings, go to Tim's listings, everyone here's listings. The more TICs you tour, disclosure packages you look at, I think the easier it'll get too.
And obviously,
also when when we meet with buyers, we basically tell them that they're going to miss out on a portion of the market unless they include TICs in their search. So if you want to see everything available and be prepared to write an offer on everything available, then get pre-approved with a TIC lender as well as a traditional condo lender.
yeah, and I find that most buyers, new first-time home buyers, have no idea what a TIC is. So we are the ones affecting the stigma that surrounds them not wanting. We are the ones saying, don't go see a TIC. We don't give, typically I find when I do that digging of, you know, trying to find out why they are having such an issue being at a TIC, they don't really have an answer for me, besides that their agent told them to stay away. And
well,
so,
think about it as well, though. Millennial buyers are being influenced by their baby boomer parents, and baby boomer parents come from the legacy of a group loan TIC, which
but
we understand.
they like 30-year fixed. So
Which they have now.
I know.
It's that legacy that we're probably trying to overcome.
I find that the stigma that's left over from the 80s and 90s is really the biggest point that I have to battle on a daily basis. Is people say, I have to get in bed financially with my neighbors, and that's not the case now.
Yeah.
You have layers of protections, you have TIC agreements, there are ways.
Across the city, or how do we?
And talk about that stigma.
One other point I wanted to make was, you know, when I started out and you're a buyer's agent and you're contacting a listing agent, you're a brand new agent, you can feel that you're being disrespected, you know, like, you know, that they would much rather do the deal with one of their friends or one of the older But us TIC listing agents, we love all you new agents, and we're going to roll out the red carpet. And so don't feel, you can call us on our, I'll pick up my phone and talk to you and hold your hand through the whole process, so you can look like the hero. I sold one recently on Hampshire Street, and when the agents got there, they got there a little bit before the buyers, and then I saw the buyers walk up. And I kind of knew they were brand new agents. They were working under another agent. And I saw when the buyers walked up, they introduced themselves. So I just backed away and kept, me, big old big mouth, can't shut up. I just toned it down and let the brand new agents took these buyers through the property. I never said a word. They didn't even know it was a TIC. They left. And then we sold them that property. So, of course, we helped them after the fact. But the point is that as a new agent, don't be intimidated by this weird thing. And remember that we're here to help you because we need to sell these things. And we're going to hold your hand. And we're going to show you how to do it because we want to sell them.
If you want to go a step further, do an open house for a TIC in the same building where Anthony has one open. I did that my second year, and he talked to me about TICs for an hour and a half, and it was an education at that open house.
And I like Anna. I think that you tend to do like little question and answer sheets, which I really liked. And I think that that's something I keep telling myself I need to do, so that I feel whenever I'm hosting an open house at a TIC, I feel like I'm a robot repeating the same stuff over and over. And people will walk in as soon as you finish a long spiel and they'll be like, so I heard you talking about these things, but I didn't listen. And you're like, awesome, thank you. And then you start over. And that's kind of, it's exhausting.
People are walking into your TIC listings because they either can't afford the condo equivalent or they're there by accident. And it's our job to help change that because they're great home ownership vehicles for folks that don't have $5 million, $4 million. Like you can really, there are some really affordable first-time homes that are TICs as well. It's a great first step. It's just a way to get your foot in the door, and then obviously check your TIC agreements, but they're great investment vehicles too, despite the rent control. If you put somebody in there today's market rent, you'll be fine if they're renting.
Someone asked a question in regards to that, actually. They said, oh, there's so many questions. Okay. So for those suggesting TICs can be rental investments, does the lender care? I would think most lenders are offering those killer rates for owner occupied.
They are all owner occupied rates. Very few lenders are doing non-owner occupied.
I think Bank of San Francisco will do it. I think Bank of San Francisco.
But once you've lived there, then you can convert to it.
You live there for a year, you're good to go.
Sorry, thank you.
What else?
We have so many, we said, so Anthony, I would love your contact info, please. I love it.
Just Google me, just put Anthony, Anthony San Francisco. And
there's a lot of questions about the lenders too. I think we're sending out the list.
I'm going to send, so I tried to send it here.
Player and a musician.
So Anthony has, the fabulous Anthony has also put together all the TIC lenders who are right now offering TIC fractional loans and their current rates as of yesterday. We will send that out to everyone who's here after. I tried to send it here and it was too much information. I would like to hear from Tim Brown on kind of just your main points. I mean, you were the one who started TICs from all that I've been told. I mean, anytime your name comes up, it's like, he's the legend. So I think all of us would appreciate to hear anything you think we could all take away.
Well, a lot of these guys have covered everything. Several of them have worked for me. They know the buzzwords and everything. But I would say a lot of it is just that, I guess one thing to tell the newer agents is everybody on this panel got wealthy by people not selling TICs because we did, right? We got out there and did it, and they're not as complicated as you think they are. Like I said, if you can ride a bike, you can sell a TIC. And you're going to be fine. And just like Anthony, we're all here to help people sell. And if you sell our listings, then everybody wins. But, you know, I think, you know, I'm not holding many open houses anymore, if I can help it anyway. But if I still hear people from my group that people are walking into open houses and saying, oh, I don't want to be on a group loan. I don't want to be with other people on a loan. And I don't know, it's like Trump misinformation or something. I don't know what's going on, but
Fake
it's
news.
pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy what's going on out there that people still in the real estate business don't understand it. But I'm just really happy the way it evolved. One of my goals, as John knows, was to sell as many TICs to get rid of tenants so we can sway the vote in the city. Get rid of rent control or get rid of a lot of other things. We're not there yet, but between the new construction and all the TICs we converted, we're working at it.
Keep selling. Keep selling.
There you go. Yeah.
Love that.
Blake asked an interesting,
Oh,
sorry, real quick. Blake asked an interesting question about, do you always mention TICs when you're meeting with new buyers? I think you do. I realize I'm kind of thinking about these things as we're going through this. I always mention TICs to people, unless they come from a specific bank, meaning like I work at Silicon Valley Bank, so I have to use them. Then obviously you don't really have a choice. But I always mention it. I always put it on their alerts. So whatever you have them set up on Real Scout, your CRM, whatever it is,
Well,
I always add TICs, and then if they like it and they bring it to me, that's also a good time to then have that conversation. You don't need to like dump them on your initial buyer intake call with all of this information about the differences between TICs, single families, rent control, this and that. Be like, listen, I'm going to put them up here. If you see some you like and you start going to them and you want to start writing some offers on them, then we can go down that road also. So you can almost kick the can a little bit, but just keep it alive, if that makes sense.
I wanted to,
I thought of it. Excuse me. I just thought of another benefit that in the city, because we were talking about a lot of TICs are sold in District 5 and District 8, but it's also, there's a lot of buildings that have been like vintage buildings that have been gut renovated in these districts. And that's really one of the only ways you can get a whole building that has, you know, the foundation's been replaced, all of the units have been remodeled, to get a vintage building in, you know, a prime neighborhood that's not new construction. I mean, the TIC is like really one of the only options to get into that kind of thing.
I wanted
I think
Good point.
one second. I think the other, just one more thing. I think when people walk into an open house and they say, oh, this is a TIC, I think, you know, I've taught everybody to say, so what's the problem? And to really ask them why they're concerned or why they don't want to buy it. And a lot of people don't even know the answer to that. But if they do, very quickly, you can change that model, as I guess Aaron said, it's bringing it into the forefront that there aren't as many problems as people really think there are. But you have to ask the question. Like when somebody says, oh, I don't want to be on a group loan. This isn't a group loan. Who told you that? And following through with it.
I wanted to bring up the point, Nicole, I think you said you wanted it covered. When you're representing a buyer, do you need to get a pre-approval for a TIC and a pre-approval for a condo? And I think for the last few years, I've been saying no, because if a person was approved, let's say with Citibank to buy a condo at a certain price point, with the way, you know, the 30-year fixed rate on a condo and the 7-1 ARM on a TIC were about the same. So the debt to income ratio would be the same. And as long as the person doesn't have an absolutely pathetic credit score, there really isn't a big difference. You know,
and if you write an offer, if any of you write an offer on one of our listings and all you have is a pre-approval from B of A or Chase or somebody, we're going to just, you know, we'll accept that pre-approval and we'll counter you that we want a TIC lender pre-approval within 3 days or 48 hours. So it gives you time to do it rather than hustling.
And I'm not going to with all the different lenders and the contact for each one. So that's one of the clunky things about TICs is that there isn't one mortgage broker who represents all the different lenders. You kind of have to have a list of them and kind of pick.
That's why we have Anthony. Tim, there's a question for you. So someone said, question for Tim, I noticed you use a real property purchase contract instead of the SFAR purchase agreement on your TIC listings. Is there a difference between contracts? Is one better than the other?
We usually use the SFAR contract and the addendum, so I don't know. I think probably they're referring to if it's a public report.
Yeah.
If it's a TIC that had to go to to Sacramento for a public report, 5 units or more, then you're required to use their purchase agreement, not the SFAR. Sometimes we'll attach the addendum to the SFAR contract just to keep all the questions or keep everything in line. I don't know what, I'm not trying to think of, we have several larger TIC projects now that require the public report approval.
And then I think this is a good question that someone just asked. They said, what about the argument that a TIC is not as valuable from a resale perspective? How do you guys?
Well, you know, I'm getting this a lot lately. People walk in and they go, yeah, but I'm going to have trouble selling it. And I'm like, well, it's selling right now. You know, it's like,
I haven't bought it yet.
we just got 12 hours.
It's so weird. It's like, it's going to sell now, but 3 years from now, when I go to sell it, I won't be able to sell it.
I tell my buyers,
that's why Aaron and I talk about how, again, I said it earlier, but we as
tell the story of the one on 8th Avenue you just sold it. They got it from me in 2018 for like $895, and I think they just sold it for like 1.2 million or something.
There you go.
on 18th, yeah.
Yeah,
not that much over, but
church with the
But my talk track is usually what I said earlier about how the city becomes more and more unaffordable, especially single family homes and condominiums. Yes, you're buying a TIC at a discount now, and you'll most likely sell it. You know, it's somewhat of a discount compared to a single family or condo. But again, as those other products become unaffordable, TICs become more and more valuable. And our 10 years of practicing, it's been head and shoulder, it's been light years already in our short 10 years of TICs. So we just try to tell people about kind of with fractional financing, 30-year fixed, as it becomes more and more common and people understand it, they become more valuable.
And they move with the market. They move with the market. That's all you got to say.
yeah,
And
if
the
you buy
evergreen
it at a
attributes.
10% discount, you'll sell it at a 10% discount.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
that discount shrinks, even better.
If you don't have parking originally, you won't have parking later. It's a similar thing.
I have a TIC buyer who is working on adding parking actually. So, and doing a pretty good job.
Don't use the one-offs. That's not.
Hey, my TIC
Except
buyers are
Nicole.
fabulous. My TIC buyers, they're all just like, they're the badasses. I'm
Or
just
they're
like,
not rent
"Go."
controlled and they all get extra parking after they buy. So there you go.
There you
Besides
go.
Nicole, everyone else is in the same boat.
Well, thank you everyone who attended and asked great questions. It really helped move this along. Thank you again to our panel. I think there was a lot of good stuff here that we can all take away to better sell these. And does anyone have any, maybe everyone give a last final word if you have one. Otherwise, I think we're hitting time, we're past time. So I'm getting the nudge.
I've got some amazing off-market TICs. It's
No.
you can walk in. It's super easy. Buy them.
If you
We'll
email
send
Anthony,
Anthony's information to everyone.
if you email Anthony, he'll send you his list of off-market TICs for sure.
I think having another panel or two, one with some TIC lenders and another one with some TIC attorneys to answer the questions
first
that we
one
couldn't
had
answer.
one of each, and it was like a little too broad because we had an attorney and a lender and Dan heard.
No, one with 3 lenders and one with 3 attorneys.
That's what I think. I think we need to dive in, and all of them have been so well attended that I am very appreciative for everyone who's taking time out of their day to
Lawyers would be good for a lot of these questions I've seen about like property taxes and if a landlord gets sued and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to give you some talking points on how to sell TICs, how to get excited about them, educate your buyers, where to send them, like Sirkin's website, g3mh.com. They have good resources on TICs as well. That's Gelman's website. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of TICs. I have been since day one. You educate yourself on them. And when it's a hot, like right now, it's like, oh, well, we're not getting that much competition on condos, things like that. A year ago, when these condos were getting like 20 offers, I'm like, oh, going over, bringing all my buyers to TICs, we're competing with 1 or 2 people. So it's also a great way to avoid competition. You're going to save money. You're going to avoid the competition. You get them into a place that they're going to like a little bit better. Maybe they can stay there a little bit longer. And then if something great happens, like they condo convert or the prices start going up, even better.
And
So, all good
and I
stuff.
know that Mark Brown was on the faces that we sent out, and you guys were taking offers on a TIC today, so that's why he could not make it. But it sounds like from his text earlier that things were looking good. So
Probably 10 offers, folks.
Amazing.
So get out there.
Wow.
Right.
sell them. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you,
all.
everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your
Thank you.
day. We'll send a
Bye.
follow-up with lenders and some other information. We'll do another one of these soon.
And we're gonna be doing our condo conversion hopefully in the fall. So stay tuned.
Now we
Thank
need
you.
doors in here.
Be out there.
Bye, guys. Thank
Good
you.
luck selling,
Bellings.
everyone.
Bye.
Go win, Anthony.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna win
Go
today.
Dubs, baby. Go Dubs.
All right.